are now tuned in to this week's episode on TOGCast. It is our mission to bring you guest speakers sharing their latest and greatest tips, skills, stories and know-hows within their market. Let's get going.
So welcome Megan to our TOGCast. So in today's topic, we're going to be talking about studying and all things to do with studying, the challenges that you might have, what you enjoy. Just tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Megan Cann. I'm a senior management accountant for Compare the Market. I have been there for just over 3 years now. I'm happy to sit here and talk to you about my study career. So I actually never wanted to be an accountant growing up. It was never something that was kind of on the forefront of my mind. I felt like I was quite like an innocent child in that you're like, I don't know what the big wide world has. You don't know how many jobs there are out there for you. So I wasn't really aware of like the finance world until I did my A-levels. So you do like your GCSEs and I feel like you pick your fun ones. I did like art and design and PE. But then when you get to your A-levels, I felt like I had to really sit and think, what am I good at? Where do I feel like it takes me? So I actually did finance as an A-level along with some others. And I feel like that's where your tutors or your teachers will sit down and say to you, oh, you're really good at this element, you're good at that element. And you just naturally have that comfortableness when you're studying. So I then obviously had the time where it comes where you have to decide if you want to go to university or if you want to do an apprenticeship. And university had never, ever crossed my mind. I never had conversations about it. I never thought about going. I'm very much like a home person. So I decided to take the apprenticeship route. My college tutor for finance assisted me with that, and I went to Peterborough Regional College to do it.
So did you find that at school you was always naturally quite good at maths? Because I know that especially when I was at school, it was sort of drilled into me that if you wasn't like top grades in maths, then you couldn't really pursue a career in finance.
I think it wasn't that I would say like middle of the class. I feel like in primary school, I thrived. I loved doing it. But then I feel like it does get a lot harder once you get into your like GCSE stages. I'm happy to say I got a C in maths. I didn't like excel. I didn't get an A star. I didn't get an A. But I feel like that doesn't play like a massive part. If you've not done well at it, it doesn't mean that like you go to study AAT or CIMA and they go, your GCSE wasn't good enough, we're not going to accept you. That there isn't that conversation. I feel like accountancy is a lot more than just doing maths. It's understanding how the world works. You need to understand finances, you need to understand businesses, you need to understand like the financial reporting behind it. When you come to do studies, there is a lot of written elements. It's about learning how to be a good line manager, how to fit in within a business, how you portray yourself as an accountant, with like integrity and confidentiality, etc.
So if you could give one bit of advice to someone that is currently thinking about studying, whether that be their AAT or their CIMA or ACCA, what's the one bit of advice that you would give them?
So I actually took quite a big gap between doing my AAT and my CIMA. So I finished my AAT when I was 21. I'm obviously 29 now and I'm halfway through my CIMA. I think my biggest thing, and this is for me, is people not putting too much pressure on themselves, on giving themselves a set deadline. I think you have to understand that work can get busy, your personal life can get busy, and you still need to have them important things. If you've not had a great day and you want to go out and exercise rather than study, then do that. If that's what you need to do, don't then be hard on yourself by saying, oh, but I haven't studied for 3 hours tonight. You can then just pick that up tomorrow. I think that's what the good thing is about what I preferred about doing my CIMA is that on the multiple choice questions, you are able to book them most Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays in your local area. It might be different in different areas. So it gives you that flexibility of if I'm not quite ready to do it this month, I can actually delay it and do it next month. And my biggest thing is always be proud of each exam. Don't go, oh, but I haven't completely finished this level yet. Each one is an achievement. And if you're halfway and you need to take a pause, you should still be so proud of what you have already achieved. And you will eventually get there. And don't compare yourself to others.
Yeah, I think that's a massive thing. I think in any industry or anything you do, it's so hard naturally not to compare yourself. So that's a really good point, actually.
I think you get people that will complete it a lot quicker than you, but your life is different to them. You have different jobs, you have different personal lives. You will also have people that like always pass first time, and there'll be people that don't. I don't mind. I'm quite an honest person. I have definitely failed exams first time round. That there's nothing wrong with that. You should still be proud. It knocks your confidence at the time, but my biggest thing is you can do this. So pick yourself up, build your confidence up again, revise again, and take the exam again, because you will get there eventually.
And sometimes I always think, like, especially if I'm sort of thinking about myself, sometimes until I've failed at something or made a mistake, that's sometimes when I'll actually learn. So it's always, I suppose, taking a, let's say, like a negative and making it into a positive.
Yes, definitely. That's, I think, like my first one that I failed, I thought it is accounting for me. That's like the route you take. You think, oh, is this for me? Is it not? But actually, I've then come away and gone, I've learned so much more. And I feel that it's quite good that I'm doing my CIMA alongside my job, because you can match the two together. Like there's stuff that I can learn at work that I can implement into my studies, and there's stuff that I learn in my studies that I can then implement into my role.
Yeah. And do you think as well, so with doing your AAT, so some people don't actually do their AAT. I know they either get maybe some exemptions from university, but would you, in your opinion, would you advise doing AAT? Because I do think you learn a lot of the basics and the fundamentals with your AAT. So yeah, I know people go down different routes, but obviously you've studied it. So it'd be good to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so because I've done my AAT, I was actually exempt from the first 4 exams of CIMA. Right. So I wouldn't be able to do a comparison on what the first level of CIMA would be like. But for my AAT, I feel like that's where I learned all of my knowledge from the bottom that built me up to where I am now.
Yeah.
It's really good to understand your basics of your debits and credits, your VAT, all the bits that then you can then build on, which is then when you take your AAT to the end, and then when you do your CIMA.
So looking back, if you could do maybe one thing or a few things differently, what do you think you would probably do?
So I think, and I don't want to call it a mistake because it's not, I think it was a different kind of career choice. So when I finished my AAT, I feel like I was so happy. I felt like it was the best achievement that I've ever done. And I'd been studying for what felt like 21 years. You've done primary school, you've done secondary school, you've done your A-levels. I've then done my AAT, and I thought, I just need a break. Yeah. I want to breathe. I want to enjoy life. I don't want any more studying. I just want to just enjoy my career, see where I can climb. And then I think I've had such a long gap between studying that and then going into my CIMA that it's really hard to adjust to studying life again.
Yeah.
I felt that my biggest piece of advice was, if you can, just continuously study, and then you have still got your knowledge really fresh at the forefront of your mind to carry on taking it from AAT to either CIMA, ACCA, ACA. I feel like it is super helpful. Mm-hmm. I have managed to get back into the swing of things again, but it is refreshing yourself sometimes on the stuff that I have learned such a long time ago. So I think that is one of the things that I would change. And I also think that because I'm trying to climb so high in my career now, your qualification can sometimes hold you back within finance. There are companies that will take you at higher levels if you've got the experience behind you, but some companies do look for a qualified accountant. And because I don't have that, it's just something that I feel like is sometimes slowing me down, and I'm ready to really, really progress. And I'm trying to do my studies super quick to catch up with me. It would have just, in my eyes, would have been better for me if I'd have got it done quite a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. And on average, how long does it take to do your AAT compared to, let's say, like your CIMA now?
So I think they're roughly the same time frame. I think AAT has changed their syllabus and however many exams they have. So CIMA on average is 3 years. Okay. But again, it depends how much time you have, if like how much free time you have to be able to study. I think I've spoken to quite a lot of people during COVID that really went through their CIMA super fast, because obviously, sadly, we were obviously all at home, so you have more capacity. So I think it just depends on your personal circumstances on how quickly you can get it done depending on your work commitments or your personal commitments.
Yeah, for sure. So after your AAT, what made you want to go down the CIMA route rather than ACCA?
So I have always been more management accounting side than I have financial reporting. So you can do either and obviously be in either role. But I felt that CIMA was more fitted for my management accounting career. What actually happened was I obviously then moved to CTM 3 years ago, and I've obviously been a management accountant there and now a senior management accountant. I actually never wanted to do CIMA. I feel like I've spoken to many people that might even be listening to this where I was very adamant when I took a new job, or I've had conversations about development where I've said, I just want to make you aware, if you are taking me on, I'm not studying any further. I'm not doing ACCA. I'm not doing CIMA. It's no plan of mine. I don't have capacity in my life for it right now. I don't feel like I can have the full focus for it.
Mm-hmm.
But something was different when I went to CTM.
Yeah.
I felt encouraged. I felt confident. I felt like I had a good support network around me, good opportunities within the company where I felt like doing this like studies would actually be able for me to be able to use it in my day job going forward. So I think it's really surprising now when I talk to people, I'm like, yeah, I'm halfway through, I'm part qualified.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? You weren't even going to do it. So I feel like it's really good to work for someone that actually encourages that. They look at you and speak to you on what route do you want to take, depending on the type of role that you have there. It's kind of, do you want to go down the financial reporting route, or do you want to go down the management accounting route? And therefore, what do they feel is the best study for you to do, whether it be your ACCA or your CIMA? So yeah.
Yeah, I think especially for someone like you at your stage in your career, where for you want to obviously climb the ladder and the next step's really important, working in a business that's going to be able to support you, make you feel comfortable, and is going to be flexible with you as well is so important. And yeah, I've worked with CTM before and they are an amazing employer. So yeah, you're really lucky. So in your CIMA, so this is quite an interesting, I always think this is really interesting to ask people, but what has been your favourite unit so far whilst you've been studying?
So you obviously have three. So you have, I know it might sound weird, you have like your P's, your F's and your E's. So your P's are your management accounting, your F's are your financial reporting, and your E's are on like systems, people management, data, etc. So actually, surprisingly, I wouldn't ever personally, at this point in my career, want to be a financial accountant in doing audit, stats, etc. But actually, that's my favourite unit. I think you will naturally find that when you're doing your CIMA, or whether it be your ACCA, which is obviously done a little bit differently, you will naturally warm to one of them more. And I feel like the way that I study better is more, if you give me a formula or a mathematical equation to remember, I feel like I remember that easier than trying to remember loads of different theories and written words. I'm more of a numbers person than an English written person anyway. So yeah, I would say that that's definitely been my favourite topic so far, but they can change per level. So obviously the difficulty changes depending on which one you're doing.
Okay.
So I know that P, so the management accounting one, does get quite hard. So you can actually see the statistics online. CIMA published them to say like the pass rates of people in the past on how many people have passed first time, etc.
So with your studying, obviously Compare the Market, they pay for you to do your studies. Do they give you all of the resources, all of the tools, books, everything that you need to then take away? And then is it just more of a case of you kind of do your studying at home or the weekends, or do you, I know some people that I speak to, they do like evening classes. So what is the best type of studying for you?
CTM do work with a preferred supplier where obviously I will then get the resources from them. So they're available via paper copy or it's all online. So it's listening modules that you get. So everyone learns slightly differently. So you'll get people that prefer to read from a book and write notes from that, and that's how they feel that they learn better. Or I'm actually more of a listener. So I would rather pop my headphones in, hear a video, and I feel like I can do that in any kind of environment. So if you're going for a nice long walk for half an hour, you can actually listen to the video whilst you're walking, or sat at home. If you learn in different ways. So like I can like be doing some cleaning, or like cleaning the sides or something, and I can be listening to it at the same time. So it's good sometimes to be in that type of environment, or you can obviously be in full focus where you're in your study, etc., listening. So my studying pattern can change. So what they do provide is you do have online classes that you can attend. So they can either be in the evenings or at the weekends. There is like a schedule that they release in advance for the next 6 months to tell you what time period they're doing it for. Now, it doesn't always work for everyone, because obviously it depends what your personal commitments are, what your working hours are, etc. So sometimes I have joined the classes and sometimes I haven't. I think it depends on when I'm planning on sitting that exam and when my busy schedule is at work. Obviously, if there's accountants listening to this, we'll all have busy times. You'll have your budget, you'll have your year end, any forecasting big times of year that you have. So I try to factor my studying around them at work as well. But you also have to be careful with your CIMA, is that your case studies are quite important at different times of the year. So there's only 4 quarters that you can do it in, and you have to have passed all your multiple choices to be able to sit your case study. So my biggest piece of advice is making sure that you've kind of got a schedule for work and for studying to be able to match them. So I will do studying in my evenings when I can, at my weekends. I would advise not studying on a lunch break if you can try to not do that. Some people might prefer that, but I think for me the biggest thing is you're working so much in the morning, so much in the afternoon, and if you're studying in your evenings and at your weekends as well, you need to make sure you have that downtime. So lunch breaks, trying to take the full hour to have your rest, make sure you drink, eat, etc., and have the time away from the screen. Some people prefer to study in the mornings or in the evenings. I feel like I can do either way. I feel like I definitely describe myself as like a morning person, and sometimes I can be a night owl. I think it just depends. But I think making sure that you're monitoring how many hours that you've done, because I think sometimes some people can really exceed the amount of hours and put too much pressure on yourself.
Because I think ultimately the worst thing that you want to do is then cause burnout for yourself, because once you put too much pressure on yourself and you're doing too much and then you get burnt out, it's it can be really sort of detrimental to your like physical and mental health. So I think that's a really good point. So are you part qualified?
I am.
Yeah. So how long do you think you've got left then until you sort of complete your CIMA?
So I would like to have it done by the end of next year, but if I don't have it done by the end of the next year, then I don't.
It's fine.
Yeah. I think I would like it done by then, because there's obviously certain like professional career paths that I would like to take, and I'm edging on the edge of my seat wanting to climb and go to that next level. But there's also a lot that's going on in my life over the next year. There's like big events that you want to go to. Like Christmas is coming up. It's one of them things where like at Christmas, I want a break. I want that time to be with my family, be with my friends. I get the time off work, and I just want to relax.
You just want to relax, and just
if
take
that
a break.
means it edges into 2026, even number, even better, then I'll take it. So yeah, that's my ideal plan. So yeah, we will see how that goes.
I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. But I love the fact that you don't put too much pressure on yourself. I just think it's so refreshing, and I think the fact that you don't put all this pressure on yourself, you'll probably do a lot better than what you think.
I just think people still need to have the confidence that just because I haven't quite finished all of my exams yet, I'm still fantastic at my job.
And
it's I love my job.
It's a journey, isn't it? Like everyone has a different journey, and you will get there eventually. So And do you think as well with your studying, so let's say there's like a module or a question, or you just need some help, is it sort of a case that you can go to your line manager at work and they can sit down with you and help you? Is that sort of an option that you can do?
So actually, Compare the Market have actually previously and are doing grad schemes. So part of that grad scheme is obviously you would work for Compare the Market, and they will obviously pay for your studies, whether that be CIMA, ACCA, etc. So actually, we have quite a lot of employees that are full-time employees now that aren't on the grad scheme anymore that have done their CIMA.
Okay.
We've currently got someone who is doing it. So I feel like as much as you can use your manager, I also really like going to them because they've done it really recently. They know what it feels like to go through the process. So they are an absolute fantastic support. And that is one of my big things about work is that people will always come up to you and go, oh, we haven't caught up for a while. How is your CIMA going? And sometimes people time it really badly and I'm like, just failed an exam or something. And I'm like, oh, actually, I haven't studied for a few weeks. So, yeah, it's using the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
People are so supportive. And I feel like if you go to them and go, this bit's really confusing me, or this bit is, we have obviously like a financial reporting team. So when I'm doing that unit, I will sit there and say, there's this one bit that I just can't get my head around it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the way it's worded in the textbook. Whereas if you have a human interaction with someone that you work with that does it as the day-to-day, they'll word it and you'll go, now I get it.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to understand, isn't it?
100%. So my biggest ones is sometimes the tax world can be really confusing. And I went over to the tax team once and I was like, I'm trying to learn this and I don't know what it is. Now I feel like I'm an expert in that field because I've used my colleagues in that way. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is if you can, there is actually also like Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups of like communities for CIMA or ACCA that you can use. People post questions in there, stuff that they're not understanding, and people will always reply to you. Or obviously I can use my tutors if I feel that I can contact them and say this part of the unit is confusing me, can we have a call, or they'll explain it differently via email.
Yes, but it seems like in terms of your support network, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. So I guess, has there ever been any sort of situations where you've ever had to make a really tough decision between prioritizing your studying or work? Sort of in like your day-to-day job?
Yeah, so I definitely link that back to what I said earlier in terms of it's learning like the company that you work for, your year-end audit, budgeting. So you do need to make sure that you obviously prioritise that for your work. So it's just factoring that in. So that was the time where I'd actually finished one of my case studies and it was coming up to year-end. So I did have a break. I think the only thing with that is then getting back into it again where you've enjoyed your evenings for so long and then actually you have to come home from work and study again. So I think that's the only thing that kind of you just need to make sure that you've got like a schedule. I've got mine on Excel, funny, where you can actually like factor these timeframes in. And obviously around the case study, they're only at certain points of the year and they take 6 to 8 weeks to mark. So you then need to decide, actually, can I have downtime in them 6 to 8 weeks if I've got loads going on at work, or should I jump into the next unit because then I've got something big coming up at work after that? So yeah, it's just factoring around that. And I think it's good to talk to your line manager and say, these are the kind of timescales that I've got. What do you think? Is there anything that I've missed that we've got coming up? So it's just communication and making sure that you have like a clear schedule for yourself.
And in terms of like the big sort of events that happen at work, so like your budgeting, your forecasting, your year-end audit, so kind of on an average, how long would your year-end audit take?
I think it depends on the time frames, really. It depends how it's going. It would depend how much involvement you have. It depends on what type of job that you have in that.
Right, okay.
So yeah, it varies depending on where you work. So it's just maybe someone will obviously always be in charge of the audit process at your work. So maybe it's just worth having a conversation with them and saying, understanding how much involvement, if it's your first audit. If it's not, you'll know how much involvement you will have.
So in terms of your role at the moment, so you've just been promoted to a senior management accountant at Compare the Market, which is absolutely amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So in terms of your like long-term career sort of aspirations, so do you have like a plan? Do you want to reach a certain level in finance? Sort of what does that look like to you?
So I do, yes. I think my next big goal is definitely becoming a manager. Okay. In terms of having direct reports. But the one thing that you just have to be super careful with is if you already have like a super important role and you're trying to study at the same time, it's a lot in one. And what you don't want to do is, like we've discussed earlier, you don't want to get to burnout phase where you're trying to get all of your work done, you're then trying to support a team, you're then trying to do studies when you go home. You need to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's where CTM have been super good with me by saying, we're going to do these career progressions and we can do this with you and we'll do that with you. And they're super good at doing that and really good at internal promotions and really looking at learning and development. So for me, that is my next goal. But that also means that I need to get my CIMA done as quickly as I can so that I have that spare capacity to not get to burnout phase.
Mm-hmm. So I guess all in all, you doing your CIMA is definitely worthwhile, because actually for where you want to go long term and you want to be a manager, unless you've probably qualified and done that, do you feel like it's a step that you could have taken still, or potentially not?
So I feel like it's very yes and no. I feel like I feel ready in myself to be able to do it. I feel like I've definitely got the right skills to be able to do it. The team that we've currently got is absolutely fantastic, and I feel that I would be a fantastic manager. But I also understand that obviously my main focus right now needs to be that when I go home, I need to make sure I study. At the weekends, I need to make sure I study. So yeah, it's just making sure that you can definitely balance everything. I think the biggest thing about careers, not just in finance, is that you don't get yourself to a point where you are super stressed and you have lots going on at the same time, because you don't ever want to let anyone down.
So last question, just for the fun of it. If you wasn't in finance, what do you think you'd be doing?
I would 100% be a paramedic.
Really?
Yeah, that
wow.
is. Do you know what? And I will be brutally honest. I feel like that was my childhood dream. It was what I always wanted to do. I got to my GCSEs. I failed science. And I went, So yeah, I just love caring for people. There has definitely been elements of my career where I have done a lot of care work, especially during COVID. So yeah, that would have definitely been my other route if I didn't stay in finance.
That's so interesting. And I think as well, like, to be a paramedic, you're obviously dealing with the public, and you are definitely a people person. Like, I feel like you just got on with everyone. You're so bubbly. You've got such a good personality. So I feel like now I can definitely see you doing that. Thank you so much for coming in and taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you for having me.
It's been amazing, and I'm sure that you're going to go really far. Actually, I know that you're going to go really far with your career.
That's a wrap for this week's episode. If you want to be our next guest speaker on TOGCast, then get in touch with the One Group, and don't forget to subscribe. We would hate for you to miss the next one.